to the Ugly Games YouTube channel. Whether it's your first time or you're a regular, we're happy to have you. So stick around and hang out with me for just a little bit as we dive into today's video. If you're here, you read the title, and you're probably at least vaguely interested in Ttrpgs or the idea of creating your own. Well, in this video series, we're going to be doing just that. Taking a game from the seed of an idea and eventually releasing it. And hopefully at least some of you are going to do it with us. So, welcome to the Session Zero. Now, we know we want to create something, but we don't know what. What's the first step? Well, we've got to put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard and start getting some ideas out. This step is what I call conceptualization. Basically, we're just taking any old thought that we have about a new game or mechanics and getting it in front of us so we can rework it later. Do you have a gripe about the Ttrpgs that you've played before and have an idea on how to improve them? Maybe start there. Have a cool idea for a playable species? Have ideas for spells, lore? Start wherever you're most inspired. Later, we're going to have to work past our inspiration, so it's always good to get it out now so we don't have to just come up with brand new ideas when we're less inspired. Instead, we can just work to improve what's already there. Very important thing to note, it's always so much easier to change something that's there than to do it all in your head. Notably, this step is also when you'd want to start thinking about what type of game you're wanting to create. Very broad stroke stuff, but do you want it to be crunchy or less so? Do you want to create a game with a size to rival D&D, or do you want to create something super small and compact? Do you want it to feature a fleshed out world or a world creation section for your game master? That sort of thing. Another note, I'm cutting out a lot of the brainstorming here. It's not going to be as fast as you'll see me come up with things, so feel free to go off on your own, do your own thing, figure out ideas for yourself, and return when you can. But as for me, I threw around ideas for a few days, and pretty early on in my conceptualization phase, I came across an idea that just wouldn't go away. See, I knew that I wanted in the end to create something small. And that had me thinking of small things, and it just hit me. Objects. The players could play literal household objects that have come to life. I personally do art on the side, and my style is like a very cartoony one. So I put together some initial art pieces from what I had in my mind, and they've actually stayed with the project to this day. I've never had a project that I felt my style fit so much before, so it's been very cool. So, meet Not, the thread spool, kind of the unofficial mascot for the game, and Mags, the magnet, BB, the bandage box, very imaginative names, I know, Sally, the sponge, and Clink, the shot glass. I show you all these to just show you how into the concept I was. I was inspired and just imagining all the possible characters that you could create. Over the next couple of days, I had the base idea of the game pretty much figured out. The game would be called Tiny Tales, a myriad of minuscule moments. Can you tell I like alliteration? And its players would be objects that have come to life and travel through an apartment or house called Little Land. And this was a fun one. They would fight an ancient evil known as the Filth. So basically, you fight to keep your home clean. It's a very cute and goofy premise, in my opinion, and it sounds like a hell of a lot of fun. Mechanics-wise, I wanted the game to be as simple as possible. For the resolution mechanic, I considered a D8 and a D10, but what made the most sense was a D6. I wanted this to be an approachable Ttrpg, and if anyone was going to have a die at home, it's most likely going to be a D6. I also wanted there to be a possibility of mixed successes, and I felt that a D6 gave you enough sides to make that a possibility. And in terms of combat, I wanted hits to do literally like 1 or 2 damage every hit. Very small numbers and very low health. And that's all I knew at first. But just this concept had a million possibilities running around in my head, so I ran with it, and confident in the fact that I was done with the conceptualization phase, I moved on to the next step, and that step is writing. This is a very open step. You can start wherever you'd like, but you basically start to make your little concepts that you've written down into reality. I like to begin by creating one big official file that I can update as I go, but you can do it however makes more sense for you. But to have a working game, this is what I figure you basically need. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing anything. I'm probably missing things, but this is what I've come up with. Very base, you need avatars for the players, something for the players' avatars to do, the possibility for those avatars to succeed or fail at the things that they're doing, consequences for if they fail those things, and rewards for if they succeed, and bonus points if you give the players the ability to set themselves up for success. Because everybody likes that moment when they have earned that moment of success. You can complicate those thoughts as much or as little as you like. There are definitely genre-specific tropes such as classes and hit points and difficulty classes, all that, and you can call upon those when you like, but you definitely don't have to use them. The first thing I started working on myself was the objects. I wanted there to be object types instead of species, so I set about deciding on the types of objects that there would be in the game. I settled on these 4. Entertainment objects, so your deck of cards, your building blocks, cigar, perfume bottle, lipstick. Forgotten objects, an empty can, a lost coin, a broken power adapter, an empty superglue tube. Keepsake objects, a ring, an old pendant, an old photograph, sobriety coin, windproof lighter, locket. And useful objects, like a thread spool, or fork, or a thimble, or a shot glass, or a magnet. I figure each object will have different base stats to start out, which means my game has stats. Okay, time to figure those out. I racked my brain and knew that I wanted a small number of stats, at least compared to the normal 6 that like a D&D has. At first, I settled on 4 base stats, but after one of the stats I chose got a little complicated to use, I moved to a clean 3 stats: badassery, brilliance, and magic. Badassery would cover all the physical stuff, how sturdy you are, how much physical prowess you have, your physical strength, your dex, your constitution, if you will. Brilliance would cover all the mental stuff, how perceptive you are, how good you stand up against bewitching effects, your intuition, basically your wisdom and intelligence. And finally, magic, which will affect your magical abilities. Which means, I guess, everyone in my game will have the capacity for magic, which totally makes sense. The fact that these objects have come to life means that they are, at their core, magical. Also, instead of classes, I wanted basically a class to be decided by the game master and the player themselves, in the form of 3 unique abilities that they come up with. These abilities will mostly be determined by the type of object they are. Like if they're a paper airplane, maybe they have a gliding ability. If they're a steel lock, maybe they have a lock-on ability where they grapple and don't let go. If they're a thread spool, they might have a natural thread rope or a needle sword. I also came up with the idea for what I'm calling fate points. You have points that you can spend to roll a d6 in times of need, and depending on your roll, you would add a certain amount of points to that roll. For instance, if you roll a 1 or 2, you add 1. 3, 4, you add 2. Or a 5 and 6, you add 3. This can turn an almost critical fail into a mixed success. Now, back to the resolution mechanic. We know we're using a d6 to figure out if we succeed or fail in our attempts to do stuff. But how does that really look? Well, in the end I came up with this. If you roll a 6, you have a possibility to roll a critical success. You roll another d6, and if it happens to also be a 6, you have a critical success on your hands. and something great happens. We'll figure out what happens later. If you roll a 5, that's a straight success. You do what you meant to do. A 4 is where it gets weird. You have a mixed success. So you succeed, but something you didn't expect and probably didn't want to happen happens. A 3 and a 2 are straight failures, and a 1 gives you a critical failure possibility. Like the 6, you roll another d6, and if you get another 1, you critically fail. This means that you fail what you're attempting to do, and something else bad happens on top of it. Now that's pretty simple, and I want the game to be simple, but not quite that simple. Your rolls will also be affected by your stats, meaning depending on your score in a certain stat, you might be adding 1 or even 2 to your roll. You can only crit if you roll a natural 1 or 6 though. Here is one quick tip. Work on what you have ideas for first. That sounds a bit obvious, but you'll notice that what you work on will bring up the necessity for other things that you might not have thought of. So you're going to be thinking of new stuff anyways. I would keep a running list of those things that you need to add somewhere so you can mark them off as you go and have them to remind you all you need to add or change. And I think that's where I want to end this session 0 of Make a TTRPG with me. I hope this has been a bit of a helpful semi-guide through the beginning of the TTRPG creation process. The writing process is going to be a long one, definitely, but luckily it'll be broken up with playtests, which are a lot of fun if run well. But this is not where this ends. You do not simply have to wait for another installment to interact with the series. We have a Discord that is currently live, just waiting for folks to come and share their own ideas as well as comment on other folks' work. Do you have a concept that you've always wanted to make? Do you have an idea for one? Did you get an idea for one during this video? Let me know in the comments or on the Discord. I'd love to see even one cool game come from this little series. I'll be offering my own thoughts as well, however much that's worth to anyone. Alright, that's the video. We'll start next time with a continuance of the writing step and possibly on to marketing and playtests. Yep, marketing, believe it or not, should begin pretty early, but we'll talk about that next time. Have a question, comment, concern? Leave it in the comment section below. The music you heard in this video is by Harper and the Like, and the art that you saw was by little ol' me. Alright, as always, stay ugly.